Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Marilyn. Well, we certainly don't have a quorum for recalc. It's just Nora and myself. Am I missing anybody?
John Parsons is there.
Oh, okay. I didn't see him. Oh, there he is.
I am here.
Hey, John.
Good evening, everyone.
I would have been shocked if you weren't there, John. Someone I can count on.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
No, it meant it. We need one more anyway. Oh. Hi, Mark.
Here.
So, well, we have a quorum now, so I think, since there's a lot of things to do, we'll begin. And I think as we did last time, recalc will start first as far as calling our meeting to order, and we'll do our attendance in minutes, and then then Marilyn, you can call your meeting to order. Okay, so the meeting's, okay. Is Ron here though? Taking
No,
minutes?
it doesn't appear to be.
Okay, well, we'll begin. Okay, attendance. So it's Nora Bucko,
Present.
John Parsons,
Here.
Mark Doxer,
Here.
John Sasso, Ron Assini, no, John O'Neill, present. Okay, the entertain a motion to accept the minutes of March 9th meeting.
So moved.
I see a second. Second. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? Seeing none, all in, yep.
John, can I ask a quick question? So I noticed at the back, there's a discussion about town meeting. And I'm not sure, I haven't had a minute to take a look at things, but I know we talked about it. I know it's mentioned in the minutes. I think we talked more about it than that, but I'm not, I don't know, kind of without looking at the tape what to say, but my suggestion would be that I believe that we did talk about it and the need to have a report to town meeting.
Okay, so we'll have that as consider that as a amendment to the minutes as presented. So now I'll take a roll call on accepting the minutes as amended. And when Ron joins us, or if not, I'll contact him so we can have that addition made. All right, so Mark.
Yes.
John Parsons.
Yes.
Nora Buckos.
Yes.
John O'Neill, yes. And John Sasso, have you joined us? No. Ron Assini, have you joined us? No. Okay, I'll turn it over to Marilyn so she can.
Hello. I'll call the roll for the council on Aging, and convene the meeting at what, 7:03 for the Council on Aging. Jackie Bohanna.
Here.
Barbara Carney. No Barbara Carney. Okay. Joan Coco. Jolyn Eck. Karen Fotino.
Here.
Thank you. Sally Hoyt. Nope. John Parsons.
Here.
Karen Panett.
Here.
Thank you. Sandy Schaefer.
Here.
Thank you. Debbie Small. Nope. Okay. Nancy Zimlack
Here.
and myself, Marilyn Shapley, here. And so we have, I believe, a quorum. Have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 full members. So we have a quorum.
Okay. I want to note for the record that Ron Assini has joined us. And Ron, since you're our clerk, the Michael Colton's not going to be here. And John Sasso hasn't joined us yet, to my knowledge. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And also there was in addition, as far as the minutes that I mentioned, the fact that we had to prepare a report for town meeting. Okay,
Okay.
make that correction. Or an addition, not a correction.
I apologize. My camera's not working today for some reason, so apologize. I'm
Okay.
not on camera.
We're gonna miss that smiling face being animated. Oh,
Yeah, it's a nice picture.
Unless they reboot my machine and come back in, that's the only way to work.
all right. So now, the next item on our agenda, both our agendas, is meeting with the UMass consultants. And so, Jean, are you gonna do the introductions?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. Appreciate the attendance tonight. I know everybody's so busy. So we are very pleased to have our team from the UMass Gerontology Institute join us. They are the consulting group that we've hired through a appropriation from town meeting that was made to the Public Services Department, the department that I'm the department head for. And we have been, Kevin Bowmiller, myself, have been meeting with the team and gathering sort of a sense of how we would proceed with this effort to do community engagement and preliminary planning work. This, as a reminder, the Recalc board did approve the scope of work back in December. So we put it out to bid and UMass was the successful bidder. And we're very pleased to have them tonight. So let me introduce the lead on the team, Caitlin Coyle, and I'll pass it off to her.
All right, thanks, Jean. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see such a full Zoom room of folks. I know everyone's excited to be here to get started, dig into the details of this work. And I just want to say that on behalf of myself and our team, we're really pleased to be working with the town of Reading again. You may know that several years ago, my team also conducted a needs assessment for the Pleasant Street Center. And so we're glad to be back in the community. So before I get started, I wanted to also just introduce you briefly to the folks on my team. We have Beth Rouleau, who's on the Zoom. She's one of our research assistants. And Beth has a master's in gerontology, and she's works with us as a consultant a lot around our age-friendly work, as well as community engagement work. We also have Sierra Somerville, who's on the call. Sierra, if you want to just wave to everyone so they can see you. Sierra is a doctoral candidate in our department, and she works closely with us. She's the overseer of all of our survey data collection and data management. So she's our data whiz on the team. So those are the folks on our team. And again, just glad to be here. And with that, I'm gonna share my screen and just sort of walk through the plan for the project, and we'll have an opportunity to sort of take questions. And we have a few things we wanna get your feedback on with respect to some of the upcoming activities. So with that, let's see, I'll share this. Okay, so these slides were shared with you via the packet that was sent out earlier this week. But we are here, as I meant, this is the team I introduced just now. I'm here to talk to you about the plans for community engagement related to the future of the Pleasant Street Center and in support of the work that the Recalc Committee is doing. So just a little bit more about sort of the Gerontology Institute, sort of where we come from and how we ended up submitting a proposal for this project. So the Gerontology Institute is a research institute that's housed at UMass Boston. It is the second oldest academic program in gerontology in the United States. Currently, 1 out of 4 people who have a PhD in gerontology are graduates of UMass Boston. So when we think about gerontology in the field of gerontology, UMass Boston is really known as being one of the sort of the founding departments in the field. And our center, specifically the Center for Social and Demographic Research on Aging, is one of the research entities within the Institute. We've been around since 2012 is when we officially became our own center. And since then, we have contracted with nearly 70 cities and towns in Massachusetts, helping them collect information and put together plans for the future, the sort of aging of their population. And the image that you see on the slide is a little bit dated, but we've been out in Western Mass, out to Nantucket and everywhere sort of in between. And as I mentioned, we were in the town of Reading in 2017, doing some community engagement, actually, some forums and some focus groups with specific respect to the needs of the community around aging. So this is something we do a lot of, and we consider ourselves, we're a public university, and so part of our mission is service to the Commonwealth. So this is work that we truly believe in and are very excited to be doing. So just as a reminder, sort of what we're charged with doing, and our purpose is really to guide the public engagement process and planning process for how the community should be moving forward with the future needs for programming space, either for a new senior center or a community center, and that's per the RFP that was put together by you all. And so that's what we're here to do. I wanted to also just recognize that we also know that you have some plans to be ready for town meeting in the fall, and have information prepared for that, that sort of milestone. And so in addition to this general purpose of supporting the community engagement and planning process, we also want to work with you all to figure out how we can support that more immediate goal. So we can talk about that as well. So as a reminder of the project activities, the first thing that we have going is 2 community forums, which have been scheduled for April 6th. You hopefully have seen some buzz being spread around town related to those activities. We are having one during the daytime at the Pleasant Street Center and one in the evening time at the library. And that is, come one, come all, wanting to hear from residents about their views on the future of the Pleasant Street Center with respect to the possibility of a community center, but more specifically, what would bring them in the door? What are the things they're interested in doing and the things that they believe are important to the community? So that will be happening first up in April. We also have 3 focus groups that we have identified. So these are smaller group conversations, typically between 10 or 15 people per focus group. And the idea for these is to really bring together people who have some sort of through line of something in common. So the idea is to bring those folks together to have an in-depth conversation about what they see as the needs of the community with respect to the physical space of a senior center or a community center, but also to give their input in terms of the kinds of space that needs to look like and the kinds of things that need to be provided via that space. So we have identified sort of what we believe to be the kinds of folks that we want to include in those focus groups. The first is town departments. So some of whom are on the call this evening, but to bring together the town departments, the people that operate and provide the services sponsored by the town, to come together to talk about how, sort of what are the services and programs that would be specifically provided, and making sure that there's not sort of duplication and everybody sort of understands what we're trying to move towards. The second focus group that we've identified is what we're sort of calling resident leaders. So that would be people who are on boards or commissions, specifically volunteers, folks who are pretty connected in the community, as well as, that includes sort of board of selectmen, elected officials as well. And then lastly is a third group, which I'm calling community organizations and providers. And one of the things that we know about the work that we do is that when we do any kinds of community engagement, we are hearing from a self-selected group of people. So there are folks in the community who, for whatever reason, aren't interested in coming out to participate in a forum or complete a survey. They aren't able to for a number of different kinds of reasons, or they're isolated for some reason. And so it's really important to us to do our best to try to engage the people who do interact with those folks. And then we're specifically in this case talking about some of the more vulnerable community members. And so we're wanting to bring together organizations. Faith community leaders are great ones, people who may drive some of the local transportation or deliver Meals on Wheels, folks who conduct outreach in the community, your local sort of aging service providers, so people from your ASAP and home health agencies and things like that. So really sort of the eyes and the ears of the community. And that conversation is important to just try to understand, we are hearing from the people we're hearing from, but we also want to hear about those folks who may not be able to have their voice heard for whatever reason. So those groups will be conducted shortly after the forums, and will be, as I mentioned, sort of 10 to 15 people per focus group. And I know Jean and Kevin will work with us to coordinate the invitations for those events. And then lastly, the community, not lastly, but certainly not least, the community survey, which is intended to be delivered predominantly online. We do anticipate mailing a postcard to each household of folks, each household in Reading. So a postcard with a QR code on that postcard, as well as information on where to call if someone needed help accessing the survey, and that phone number would direct them to us at UMass, where we have folks who can help people do it over the phone or direct them to the website as they need assistance. And
are there going to be, because I know there has been concern about the fact that some elders may not be able to utilize, the online. Are there going to be any hard copies available?
so the idea is that so there's the phone option for people. So there'll be a phone number printed on the postcard that is mailed to everyone. And then we do have the capacity to have some print copies available at the Pleasant Street Center. We are limited in our capacity to deal with, we don't want thousands of those, but we do have that. We will have that capability. And I also have some ideas about other ways that we can support people in accessing the survey online, either via the library, the computers at the Pleasant Street Center, and other outlets. And so the idea is that will be shared, via all of the sort of electronic mechanisms.
Somebody has their hand up, Marilyn.
Hi, Marilyn. Oh, you're on mute, Marilyn.
Do you want questions as you're going through, or would you rather wait to finish your presentation?
Well, I was thinking I'd wait till we get through it, but it sounds
Okay.
like folks have things to say, but I'm happy to take your question.
Okay. My concern is with the older folks.
Yes.
I have one concern, and I've talked some with Jean about this, and I've emailed quite a few of you about this as well. I am concerned about the bias. I honestly see the senior population being seriously underrepresented in this design.
Mm-hmm.
Among the forums, I know there was a notice in Pleasantries, which just came out, I think, yesterday. So there's a little bit of buzz on that, but it was at the bottom of page 6, I have to say. It wasn't highlighted. I personally, I know, Jean, you mentioned a whole bunch of other avenues through the Globe and other things that it'll be, but I personally haven't seen it anywhere else yet. The only reason I get Pleasantries is because I'm on the Council on Aging. So I'm concerned about whether we have adequately reached out to the senior population. And on top of it, Pleasantries only goes to approximately, I'm told, 1,000 seniors. We have 7,000 seniors.
Mm-hmm.
So we're only even notifying for certain about 14% of the senior population. When you get down to the focus groups, I don't see the seniors as a group represented at all, except the degree that they participate in one of those organizations.
Mhm.
And I am still concerned about the survey. I know you have some more ideas you're going to share on that.
Yeah.
But up until now, we've been talking, I thought about paper surveys being mailed to every household with possibly multiples to account for the fact that every adult in every household should individually be able to express their opinion. So I'm looking for the seniors in here. I know that's not your only audience. You're talking about potentially a community center, and I see that quite well represented across this. But I don't see the 7,000 seniors. I see a smattering of about 1,000. And I would say that's a very biased 1,000 because you're only getting those who currently, for the most part, have the ability to use the existing senior center. And many don't. For example, anyone who's got a full-time job, the
Mhm.
senior center is virtually of no value because it has hours only during the day.
Mhm.
And I'm one of those. And I think we're an important part of the population. But I think there are a lot of others as well who, for mobility reasons or transportation reasons or any number of other reasons, or just unawareness. I mean, many people don't even know what the Pleasant Street Center is. And I do thank whoever made the edit on the flyer for adding a sentence that explains what the Pleasant Street Center is. The first draft didn't mention it. And I've commented that I was concerned that simply saying Pleasant Street Center would not ring a bell with a lot of people. So thank you to whoever got that extra sentence on there. I think that helps. And actually, Jean, I see the article. It's planned. Okay. And again, I'm not faulting you for the plan, Jean. I'm just saying up till now, I haven't seen anything and the date is approaching. So I'm concerned about the process of notifying at least the other 6,000 seniors, if not all 7,000 of them.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
Mark and John Parsons have their hands up too.
Yes. Yep. Thanks, Marilyn. I appreciate all your comments. I'm a gerontologist by training, so I'm right there with you, and hopefully we can find ways to address those issues and your concerns. Mark?
Thanks. Hi there, Caitlin. Hey, everybody. I wanted to encourage you in the focus groups. I know in the stakeholder group number 3, community organizations and providers, to include some residents in the focus groups as well, because I think that the interaction with the providers in particular would be really helpful to the understanding. And I want to make sure that residents are allowed to kind of participate in all 3 of these different kinds of activities. I know you've got resident leaders. I'm thinking this is more residents, and then to Marilyn's point, not just users of the senior center, but residents who are of age, who might have some good things in the interaction of the groups. So I'd encourage you to consider that as an add.
Okay. Great. Thank you. John?
Okay, on the bottom line, some print copies, 100. I think you should be happy if you get 7,000 print copies.
Yes.
That's what seniors are comfortable with. That's what they're gonna do. I think you made mention of the fact that there might be arrangements made to bring people to the senior center or the Pleasant Street Center so they can fill it out.
Mhm.
That's not the way to reach seniors. You've got to be sending this stuff out to them, in my opinion.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I think the more the better.
Right. No, absolutely. I'm with you there, John. One thing to just remind us that when those paper surveys are completed, however many there are, they all have to be entered by hand. And so that leads us into another conversation, which is timeline, and just sort of thinking about the capacity to get those things, mailed to everyone, returned, and then entered in by hand and checked and coded. And we have sort of a system on our end that we engage in to do that. But it takes time. Is the key. So it's not going to happen super quickly. Marilyn, did you have another question?
No, just to reemphasize on that, I think the key thing to keep our eyes on is what question are we trying to answer? And if we're trying to identify what the need is in the community, and there's no way to do it without taking a little more time, to my mind, there's no question, we don't have the option to not take the time to do it correctly. But right now, most seniors are being overlooked by this design.
Yep.
Vastly more seniors are being overlooked. And particularly if the question is future of the senior center, they're your primary stakeholders, not the committees and the boards. And I know the discussion as a whole is broader. You're looking at the need for a community center as well. So I understand why there are other things on here, but there absolutely has to be something that focuses on those 7,000 people. And to John's point, you really need, I mean, the reason we focus on seniors for the most part is because they need the extra attention. You're talking people at a stage of life where you really have to help, because mobility becomes an issue, transportation becomes an issue, hearing becomes an issue. You know, the phone might not be an easy answer. You need to go the extra yard for that group, not the smallest yard. And just one last time, since I have the floor, we're really we're not even beginning to touch the goal here, I don't think.
Yep. Got it. No, I think that's right, Marilyn. I mean, I think you make some really wonderful points, and I think it is a balance here between hearing from everyone and giving everyone the opportunity to weigh in. So I want to be really aware of that. So let me just. So we've got a couple of options. So I mentioned, you know, my acknowledgement that there's some interest in having information prepared for the town meeting in the fall, and sort of our ability to get information to be prepared for that that town meeting. And so I think we have to talk a little bit about the timeline, and that sort of connects with some of the issues that have already been raised. And so I wanted to just sort of walk through. We sort of have two paths that we envision that we could take that have pros and cons to each of those. And I wanted to sort of lay out my recommendation to this group and sort of what I believe to be the way that will yield the highest response and the most engagement from your community, and then be able to have some discussion about that. So this is, I sort of laid them out. There's sort of option one, option two, but it's just to sort of lay out the specifics of what needs to happen in order for us to collect the information, process it, and be prepared to report that information back to you. So this first option, this is the first half of the timeline, so it's not the entirety, the first half. So we've got this meeting happening in late March, and then a number of activities that happen on our end in terms of being prepared to conduct the forums and the focus groups, including you know, the April 6th, the two forums on April 6th, and then identified some possible dates for the focus groups which would be happening in mid-May. And then the back half of that timeline would include an opportunity to engage with this group around the specifics of the survey. So we would prepare the survey, deliver it to you all with about a week or two in advance, so that you have time to review it. And then we would have a conversation where we would go sort of question by question, explaining to you why we're asking it and what we're planning to do with the information, and why we think that information is useful to the goals of this project. So that it sounds like you have a meeting perhaps, tentatively on the books for April 20th, which we identified as the opportunity to have that survey conversation. Provided that there are edits and updates to that survey, we would do that in the following week or so. We would get sort of final sign off from you all, and then we'd have to put the survey online. We would test it internally, generate the postcard. We work with a third-party mail house who does our printing and our mailing around the postcard. They also clean a mailing list, which we would obtain from the town clerk. All of this would be happening in the June timeline, and then sort of also support the outreach efforts locally to generating material to be shared around the survey over the summer. And that would get us to about mid-August, which is when we would have to have everything online and the postcard to the mail house to print and to mail, and that would go out the first thing after Labor Day, be open for the majority of the month of September, would allow us to get some preliminary results reported by the end of September to you all, and then continue generating a more formal report and be prepared to deliver that closer to the end of the year. So that's that's one option. And I will say that, and Marilyn, I see your hand, I'm just going to finish my thought here, which is that based on the work that we do, we typically have surveys in the field, quote unquote, 2 times a year. And that would be after Labor Day and after January 1 before Memorial Day. So we find that our response rates are the highest between in the fall, before the after the summer, before the holiday, and then after the new year, really sort of later in the winter when people who may be out of town. So sort of the February, March, April, May timeline. The reason for that is that we live in New England is one thing, and June, the summertime is nice weather. People are leaving town, they're traveling, school is out. It can be a difficult time to get people's attention, and so sort of once that Memorial Day time hits, we start to run into having to really compete for people's attention, and the same thing with the holiday and the winter time. So this timeline that I just sort of laid out, the first one, which has our survey going out in September, would allow us a couple of advantages. One being that we would have an opportunity to really fine tune the survey and really get our outreach plan prepared. It would also be able to be prepared to do all of the things that we need to do in order to make sure that older adults in particular have access to the survey. So to Marilyn's point about, printing maybe more than 100 and being able to have things, work with local partners to try to figure out how we can best support people to access the survey. So that's one timeline. And Marilyn, you have a question?
Jean actually asked that we
Okay.
hold questions to the end, so I'll be happy to wait to the end. I'll just
Okay, thanks,
leave
Jean.
up my hand for when you get there.
Okay, thanks, Marilyn.
Sure.
So that's one option. So that puts us with sort of some results. And again, especially with the online survey, one of the advantages of that is that it's a very quick turnaround as far as analysis. So those data are already in a system, they're already in a database. We can sort of crunch the numbers and get you some sort of preliminary results very quickly. So in terms of meeting your town meeting goal, I think that that's certainly still on the table with this timeline. It wouldn't be the final results. It wouldn't be the sort of final, but we could certainly provide sort of a snapshot of results, especially on some key variables, cross-tabbed by some, age groups and things like that, as well as all of the engagement, all of the work, the forums and the focus groups that are happening this spring. All of the content of those conversations would also be prepared and ready to go for that town meeting timeline. This timeline also allows us to sort of take that information that we're learning in the community forums and in the focus groups and use it to develop a survey that is really sort of responsive to what we're hearing. And so this, having the fall survey would allow us to sort of process that qualitative information that would then inform the survey a bit more. So that is one option here. Let me see. The second version of a timeline that would still get us where we think we'd like to be is very similar on the front end. So sort of the qualitative pieces being done this spring. Where it gets a little hairy is trying to get the survey out before we really lose people's attention in the summer. So the idea is that if we're going to do it before the summer, we need to do it as quickly as we can. And so in my view and in this timeline, the quickest we can do that is probably pretty much the first week of June. So that would still have us with that one meeting to review the survey on April 20th with you all. It means we'd be really limited to just having sort of one round of exchange around the survey. So we'd sort of present the draft, we'd have the one meeting with you all, and that would be it essentially, because we'd have to finalize the content of the survey very quickly. Whereas in the first timeline, there's a little bit more wiggle room to kind of go back and forth until we get it right. So then we would be doing all of the survey prep, putting it online, getting the postcard, the mailing list, doing outreach, all of that pretty much all in the month of May. We would absolutely have to get things to the printer by May 23rd in order for that to be able to go out on June 6th. It would be out for the same amount of time. So the majority of the month of June, the survey would be out, and we would be having to do the outreach that we've talked about in terms of getting the word out, being able to have people do it on paper. There'd be a much tighter, it'd be a little bit more tough to get a lot of printed surveys out and processed in this timeline, but we can do it. And then we would have the summertime to, at least part of the summer anyway, to do some data analysis and get those preliminary results to you by September, which would then, again, those would be preliminary results for the most part, and we'd be able to, sort of polish the report and finish that, probably in October. So the big difference between the two is really that in the first timeline that I laid out, it's really sort of putting the survey out in the field after Labor Day. And in this second timeline, the biggest difference is that the survey would go out in June. And so I mentioned as we went along, some of the pros and cons. This is just a summary of that. Sort of option one, there's a little bit more time and opportunity to get survey from the council, or I'm sorry, feedback from the Council on Aging and the Recalc Committee, more opportunity for printed surveys to be distributed. Like as I mentioned before, we believe that the fall survey would likely yield a higher response rate simply because it's a better time of year for people who are paying attention to their computers and things like that. And the biggest con is that the amount of data that would be available for the warrant for town meeting would be limited. So we would still have some data, but it would sort of be a snapshot of where we are with that online survey. Option two, which is having the survey done earlier in June, means, the pro is that you'd have sort of everything, all the data together pretty much. It'd still be, preliminary to some extent, but you'd have it all sort of together for the town meeting. The downsides is that time, the feedback for the feedback for the survey would be tight. We'd have to really get that nailed down pretty much in one meeting, and there wouldn't be a lot of wiggle room for back and forth. We really are limited on our number of printed surveys that we could do in June, and that has something to do with the fact that we have a workload on our side. We have 3 surveys going out between now and June, where we are expecting over 1,000 responses for each survey. And so we have very limited capacity to process print surveys in the spring. And also that June, as I mentioned, we start to get into that post Memorial Day time when it can be difficult to get people's attention. So our prediction is that your response rate would likely suffer if we did it in that time. So those are sort of laying out the one of the questions we have to ask ourselves here. I think, the issues that Marilyn has raised, I think, are very important, and we need to kind of consider how we can do that. I'm not sure that mailing one survey to every resident is feasible given our budget and our capacity, but I think there are certainly things we can do to ensure a higher response specifically from older adults. And one of those things is turning people out for the forums and the focus groups, which are coming up this spring. And I think that's something that we'll be looking for some support from you all to do with us as sort of members of the community. So the most immediate next step, as I said, is sort of to prepare and advertise for that April 6th forum. As I mentioned, we sort of have some ideas about who we think the participants for focus groups should be, although we've heard some good feedback this evening about the incorporation of resident groups. And so we'll be working with Jean and Kevin to coordinate invitations on that. And then we'll also be prepared to have a draft survey in advance of your April meeting. So those are sort of our immediate next steps. I think now would probably be a good time I sort of mentioned the focus group piece already. And so I'll maybe at this point stop sharing my screen and we can take some questions and have some discussion about the project. So Marilyn, you've been waiting patiently.
Oh, thank you. Just on your timeline, I didn't see any mention of the Council on Aging reviewing the survey. We're not Recalc, we're a separate group. And this is a joint meeting of the two. Yes, Jean?
Yeah, if I could just jump in, we have discussed that, and we have discussed that would be a joint meeting to review the survey. I think that was in an earlier meeting we had discussed that.
Okay, if we could just get that clearly on the timeline so that everyone's aware the council's here and a separate voice. Thank you, Jean. And the other thing, just you mentioned that I had said we needed more than 100 of the hard copies. I'm with John Parsons. We need 7,000 of them just for the senior population alone. And everything we've heard up until this point in these discussions has indicated there would be envelopes stuffed with surveys going to each home. And as much as possible, we were going to find a way to make sure there'd be separate ones for each adult in the home, because you can't expect them to have the same opinions. So this is pretty shocking that we're even thinking about doing less if we genuinely want to find out what the need is. The findings will just be, I'm a statistician by training, so I know of what I speak. The bias that you will have in your results if you don't do that will be deadly. And the bias is going against seniors, frankly. And this thing is all starting out of a realization we need to serve the seniors better in terms of the facility. We've outgrown the one we've got. So the most important, to my mind, component of this, and if we can combine it with a community center, I'm not personally opposed to that at all. I think it has some real potential, but the seniors should be front and foremost in this. And right now they just are not, and I'm not hearing anything that these timelines or budget that are going to ameliorate that. So that said, I'll put my hand back down. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. John.
Yes, okay.
Oh, sorry, Sasso.
Okay, good.
Yes, hi, Caitlin. Thank you very much. I apologize, I joined late. So just a couple a question and then some feedback. I don't know if you addressed it. I came in the middle of your presentation. For the forums that you're planning, the community forums, I read somewhere that there were some scripts of that either planned or already in place. Did you present that information, or is that something that we've talked about yet or that we need to talk about? What's the plan for that?
Yeah, the scripts were not shared. They are prepared. Sierra and Beth and I have been working on those. I can describe what we're thinking for those forums, if that would be helpful to you all. The forums are intended to be sort of town hall-esque, so we're expecting large groups of people. So the prompts, so what I'll do is sort of give a little bit of demographic information about the population in Reading, the different age groups, and how we anticipate some of those things changing over time. And then, sort of referencing the Recalc committee and the sort of pursuit of this project to really engage the community in a conversation about what they would value as far as programs and services from a senior center or a community center. So it's really about trying to understand what would get people in the door to one of these places, maybe not focusing so much on senior center versus community center, but really thinking about reflecting on people's needs and preferences. What are the things that would bring them in the door? Because I think that's going to inform sort of how we're thinking about what kind of space is going to be needed. So they're going to be probably 3 or 4 prompts. I'm thinking of them as prompts as opposed to questions, sort of to get people's thinking about sort of what is their needs and interests, and what would get them in through the door of a community center or a new senior center.
Okay, so really kind of a guided discussion, an open discussion on those points. Okay,
That's correct.
All right, and then just piece of feedback, and John, maybe you have a thought on how to help get an answer for Caitlin on this, but I'm certainly considering the objective of Recalc is to get really good data. I think trying to push ourselves to do something in June is probably a bit of a false hope, quite frankly. And I'm really interested because I think the point Caitlin's made about using some of the, not just the forums, but also the focus group sessions as places to also pick up some potential other things that might be relevant. We would lose some, if not all of that, trying to push with a survey. I also think it would maybe perhaps limit some of the cycles of review that we as a group and the COA as a group want to make sure is appropriate. So I just throw that out as a piece of feedback. I think I don't know if the intent is to come up with a formal decision on that this evening, but I just thought it'd be relevant to share that I think we'd rather have as much good data as possible in the mix. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I agree. And I guess just to make it clear from our perspective, I mean, our recommendation as people who do this kind of work would be to sort of wait and do a fall survey for the reasons that I laid out. And so just to be clear about sort of, I want to be cognizant that you guys have goals and milestones you're trying to meet, and I want to be supportive of that, but to just sort of put forth my recommendation clearly. Mark and then Marilyn.
Thanks, folks. just another thought, because I've been one of the folks really trying to get us to November town meeting. So there might be another avenue for us to think about, and I'm speaking to Recalc and the council here. And that is that there are these pandemic relief funds that the town has received. And there's a discussion about how those monies should be used. I think there's a case to be made that the feasibility study that we're talking about, the next step, perhaps can be funded out of that money rather than town meeting for this next step. And I know that there's actually a lot of discussion going on in the background. The town manager, Jean, Kevin, I think I'm coming into the loop a little bit on this now as well, about what the cost of that might look like. But just thinking that if there were the possibility of removing that November kind of looming deadline, that might help things quite a bit. And if that were to happen, I think what for all the folks on the meeting here is we'd want to lobby the group now that is looking at the allocation of the ARPA funds, as well as the select board, that this is a priority and would like to get it. And there's a time factor associated with it, I think now also, because making a decision about that sooner could allow us to relieve the pressure on the back. And so I'd encourage folks to think about that as a possibility. It requires, at the end of the day, it requires the select board to vote it in a timely fashion. But I think it's worth considering, especially as, if we're all saying, gee, we want to do this right, and it's going to take more time. And then we have this November deadline kind of looming to try to have things ready to approach town meeting. Perhaps this is an idea to consider. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Marilyn?
Thank you, Jean, for outlining the various steps. And I think for reaching the community as a whole, it seems like a great plan. I just question, how are we reaching that other 6,000 people? The Pleasantries only goes to 14% of our seniors. And Caitlin, you keep saying we want to find out what it would take to get our seniors into the senior center. Well, you're not inviting them particularly. You're focusing on the ones who do go to the senior center for the most part, by only sending it to the approximately 1,000 who got Pleasantries right now. So, and I don't see them being contacted by these other things. Some hopefully will read the Globe article. That's great. It's getting pretty close to the date for people to plan, especially if they need to arrange transportation, but it's great that it will be there. Drafting a press release, maybe some, but again, I don't know that it's going to really hit our target population of the ones who aren't getting into the senior center and may or may not need the services. We don't know, really. It could go either way, but we need to ask before we make a major decision about the direction the town's going. The boards and commissions, that's all great for the broader community. Local cable TV, as long as people are aware that there's something there for them to see, to know about. And I don't know how most of them are going to know that in terms of the seniors. The downtown businesses, things, again, great for the community as a whole. I don't see the 6,000 that we're missing. And emailing to the recreation database, not so much the library might actually help, but seems to me what we need is to be having flyers in the grocery stores. We need to be having the flashing sign in the center of town say, we've got a forum about the senior center, folks. If you've got an opinion, please come. It's a challenge because it's right on top of the election. And I think most of the flashing signs are all about get out and vote. So unfortunate timing in that. But I'm just really, really concerned. We're not going to get the information we think we're going to get. And I'm concerned that it's not in the plan.
Yeah. Just as a reminder, Marilyn, so the intent is that a postcard announcing the survey, directing people to the survey through a link, a QR code, and a telephone number would be mailed to every household.
I understand. I'm talking about the forums right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You've repeatedly mentioned that at the forum, you want to find out, among other things, what it would take to get people into the senior center. You're not talking to the right group of people. And at this point, we're so close to it. I don't know how you're going to reach them, except things like putting hard copy out in the library, in the grocery stores, in the schools, wherever you can, to let people know, and younger people as well, to let their parents know. Because it may be the younger middle-aged group that's helping their folks. So the ones that are going to say, hey, mom, there's a forum, we've got a chance to be heard. And I don't see it here. I see a community plan that looks really solid. I don't see the focus, and that's been the ongoing issue with the senior center for a couple of years now, frankly. We stopped doing a distribution to the community as a whole. We used to. Pleasantries used to get mailed to every single household, and that has not happened for over 2 years now. So it's time to turn this around. It's a problem, and we're neglecting a group that's getting bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
May I interject at this point, Caitlin?
Of course, yes.
That, well, a couple of things. One is that if we're going to go with the later date,
Mhm.
see, I was really hesitant about April 6th because I don't think there is a big buzz in the community. I don't think people know about it, have any idea that a community center is part of it. I think you're going to get the people who want to keep things just the way they are. You know, I'm afraid of that anyway. I am happy with the thought of November because I didn't see either the first option or the second option was going to allow us enough time, because what I would like to see is, because we have to come up with recommendations, just not the data. So Recalc has been charged with, making a recommendation. And I would like to see, after we have the draft data, have people have an opportunity at that point to also have some, to comment upon the draft,
Mhm.
Because by then, that's when you're going to have a lot of people say, oh, they're actually going to be making a decision that's going to impact me one way or the other.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Good point, John. And I will say that regardless of the timeline, the final step in all of this is a public presentation of results, as well as a presentation of results to the Board of Selectmen. So whenever that happens, it may not be for town meeting in the fall, but I think those presentations are an opportunity for people to offer their reactions and their input, at least one opportunity for people to sort of hear the results and provide their feedback and their reactions to that. John Sasso has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to respond back to Marilyn's, just two possible thoughts. And then I just want to make a mention about something John said. So, Jean, maybe you'd be able to answer this question. Is it possible to do I'll call it the reverse 911 call notice out to the town? I mean, I got a call the other day saying, hey, don't forget to vote tomorrow, or whatever it was. Is that an option to reach out to the community, or is there a certain set of criteria that have to be met in order to use that?
There is criteria that has to be met in order to use that. That comes out of our communications team. And we have asked them to promote this every way that they can. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that can be done, if that meets the criteria, but we can certainly follow up and see.
Okay, thank you. And then the other point, we do have an election on Tuesday. Can we put some signs out, at the entryways to the voting places for folks to give them notice? So again, it may not answer your entire question, Marilyn, but I think those are two ways. I mean, certainly if we could do the reverse 911, I guess I'll call it that. I know that's maybe not what they call it anymore, but you'd get the whole town effectively via the phone. To your point, getting it communicated out in whatever way possible would be great. Town alerts, thanks, Ron. I'm sorry. And then but I do want to talk, I think John O'Neill, you made an excellent point. Mark and I certainly, and I think all of us now have been looking out at what other communities have done to get the town and the community members kind of informed and involved in these processes. And I think we are potentially, this April 6th date, I got to be honest with you, came up a little bit out of the blue for me. And I have a similar kind of fear that we haven't actually done our job educating the folks in the community about what it is we're actually trying to do at this point to even entice them to show up for something like this. And that's just my gut feel. I could be entirely wrong, and maybe it's okay to do this. And but we really haven't spent a whole lot of time. I mean, those of us that have been involved in this process, yeah, we're aware of it. But a lot of the other communities that we've looked at have spent, quite a bit of communication effort, communicating out specifically about this sort of an effort. This is what's happening. This is why we're doing it. These are the things and the steps we're going to take. We've done none of that. We've done work on our side to do some homework to prepare for that, but we haven't done that other work. And so while I understand we've got a schedule and we've done all these things, I think we do run the risk of being woefully underrepresented in folks that actually feel, energized about giving that information because we haven't done our job to inform them.
Thanks, John. Marilyn? Nope, you're on mute, Marilyn.
I think all those suggestions are, Ron, are really excellent suggestions. And I also just want to remind the community, we brought this up last month. I think we brought it up before. The Council on Aging has a responsibility to engage in outreach, and we have funds to pay for it. And month after month after month, we've been asking to do it. And understandably, given constraints related to the pandemic, there's been reluctance, but we're still here. There's a need. And, I would not want this to get dismissed as budget is a constraint for communication, because it's something we're charged to do with trust funds specifically for outreach. And we've expressed concern again and again that there's no informative information going out to people to even begin to educate them about what's going on. And we need to do that, again, if you expect to get valid results out of this study. So why do it if we're not going to do it well? So, and we do need to do it. Don't misunderstand me. So anyway, so that's all I have to offer.
Thanks, Marilyn.
Also on the Pleasant Street, I know I used to receive it because my wife and I are both in that age bracket. We're in our 70s. Why could, and we haven't received it in the last couple of years.
No.
So why couldn't that go out to everyone, Marilyn? So,
We have asked, we've asked
survey,
that, John. John, we've asked that again and again and again and
no,
again.
but I'm saying now for this purpose.
I think it would be great.
I think
You need to talk to our elder service folks and convince them now is the time.
Oh, if not now, I don't know when.
I'm with you.
As far as something having to go out to every person, I don't agree with that, because I participate in a number of the community surveys, and I do it online, and I know a number of other people around my age, so I don't know, there has to be some way in between. Well, one of them could be if Pleasantry goes out to everybody, and then there's a little thing that people could send back in or whatever, or a phone number, call here, and then you could get it. I think that might be an efficient way to be able to answer most of your concern, Marilyn.
I agree. Again, elder services keep saying now is not the time. We need to get to understand when will be the time with elder services, and I don't know when there would be a better time, but it used to go out at least twice a year, John. And that's
Speaking of elder services, I see Amy.
Can I ask why we don't let Amy talk on this? She's had her hand
I'm
up.
trying. Thank
Amy,
you.
yes. Hi, Amy.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you. So Marilyn, just to reiterate this, we were closed because of the pandemic. So this is on the radar, and we are going to revisit about doing the bigger mailings. We're not putting it off. This is a concern. We are addressing it. So things were done differently. I'm still learning the ropes. We're going to address it. I just don't think now's the time to talk about it.
I'm just answering John's question is why. John's asking me, can't we do it? And I'm just saying I'm with John.
Right.
Blame me.
But Elder Services is the one that needs to come to grips with this, so.
Well, and it sounds like they're in the process of addressing it. So this may very well be an opportunity for those things to support one another. Yeah, thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Would it be helpful at this time for the respective, committees or council to
Oh,
take a vote on which option?
John Parsons has his hand up if we want to hear from him briefly before we.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, if all those pleasantries are going out, Marilyn, you're gonna have to get the entire Council on Aging down there as volunteers and about 40 other people to do that. We don't have a big enough department and Elder Services to handle something like that. We have to understand those things.
Marilyn, oh, you're on mute, Marilyn, but.
I can respond. John, it's something that, again, what we proposed, and I do understand that there have been constraints, but at some point we have to accept this is the world we're in and we've got to find ways to work in it. But we have talked about possibly funding outsourcing that huge volunteer effort for at least the first round until we get back to the stage that the volunteer force is reconstructed, John. We've talked about that repeatedly. We have ample funds that need to be spent on outreach from the trust, and it's our obligation to do it. I can't think of a better way. Thank you.
But we need it is people. I don't know how many other people here, probably nobody on the screen has worked on one of those mailings that was done 4 or 5 years ago. You don't, I think most people don't understand how many people it takes to do that and how long and how much time you've got to put into it. It's a big consideration.
Yep. It's certainly
Sounds like a nice intergenerational project, working with the high school honor society.
Some of those kids will never know what a bulk mailing looks like, a bulk paper mailing. So that might be a good educational opportunity. John, I think you were talking about perhaps going into some kind of vote or conversation. And before we do that, I just wanted to make a couple of summary points.
I didn't want to finalize things. I just didn't know if that would be helpful to go on with the discussion if you had that decided.
Yeah.
If not, I'm not rushing.
Well, I think that certainly is one of the things that would be useful to address as we try to move forward with our plans. I think there are a couple of other things I want to just reiterate back to you all, so you make sure you know that I heard you. So in terms of the sort of options that we laid out and the activities that we've laid out, we certainly heard that we want to incorporate residents into the focus groups as one sort of change to the plan, or sort of a amendment to the plan. So that's something that we will reflect on. We also laid out the 2 timelines. So we've got sort of the survey getting done in June versus the survey getting done in September. And generally speaking, I think I heard a lot of sort of support for the fall survey, but we can certainly, make sure that that's the case if we want to take a vote on the sort of timeline issue. And then I think the third issue that, we may not be able to finalize this evening, but it's certainly something for us to continue to wrestle with, is this notion that Marilyn has raised and others around the outreach to seniors and ensuring that folks have equal opportunity to participate in the survey whenever that should happen. So I think, we have some thoughts on our end on how we can do that, and we can certainly work with Jean and Kevin to get more specific about how to do that. And then the last thing that I hear, and I think we need to sort of address, is this issue that we have the April 6th forums. I think the communications team has done what they can as far as pushing it out, and they're continuing to do flyering and social media and things like that. I think at this point we can't retract April 6th since it has been out there. So I certainly think we'll plan to do that. But if we feel like after April 6th, if the turnout isn't what we're looking for, or people, we can talk about perhaps having another opportunity to do a community forum. As a reminder too, I don't think I mentioned this in the details, is sort of that the forum, we're having it twice to try to capture different populations of folks, during the day and in the evening. And it's also simultaneously going to be available on Zoom, so people can participate remotely at either of those sessions. So so anyway, so that's just something else I want to put out there, and that we're hearing you, and that we can certainly think about how to try to address that issue if we need to, based on the outcome of April 6th. So I think for the most, sort of immediate decision, so to speak, I think is probably the timeline piece. And that's just because that will dictate sort of a lot of pieces falling into place at different times. So if we want to sort of have some discussion or agreement on when we think that survey is best to go out, we could probably do that this evening. John Parsons, did you have something else you wanted to say, or is your hand up from before?
I'm sorry, it's up from before.
That's
forgot to
fine. I
take
just
it.
wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm sorry. I
No,
mistake.
you're fine. Okay, so I just wanted to sort of recap what I heard, sort of where I think the sticking points are, that we know our team is going to address those things. But I think the sort of ultimate decision that we need input from you on is that the timeline piece. And then I guess the last thing I'll say, just while I'm rambling, is that ultimately the community, the outreach for these activities, so the focus groups, the forums, and the survey, we can do our part in terms of providing that information and trying to get it to the right people in the town of Reading. But I think it's also something that's going to take a collective effort in terms of people sharing it with their own personal networks in town, and writing letters to the editor, things like that, to try to sort of have a groundswell of response. So I would just also put the call out to this group and to others that we'll need all hands on deck if we want to really get a good response.
Caitlin, as far as responses, what's been your experience? Because I know most other things that I've participated in, it's not great, even if you do a lot of work. So what's realistic?
For an online survey, what's realistic is we typically, I think Sierra, wherever you are, can potentially back me up on this. I want to say we get somewhere between 10 and 12% response rate on online surveys. Would you?
That sounds about right.
Okay. So the online survey, so yeah, so if we're thinking about, and this is essentially going out to all residents, effectively we're considering the 18+ population all residents in this case. We're not expecting a lot of children to do the survey. So if we use that as our denominator, then we'd be looking at trying to get a lot.
Couple of thousand?
Yeah, about 1,000.
Maybe 2,000. But.
Mm-hmm. But I think equally as important as the response rate, there's the two other things that I think are really important to remember. Is one, can we feel confident that we gave everyone an opportunity to participate, to have their voice heard, number one, and number two, we can, that the folks that we are hearing from are people who clearly have things that they want to say, and we want to try to target various populations in the community. So we're not just hearing from one group or the other. So there's, more is better, of course, but there's also a little bit of nuance to that as well.
See, and I personally, I hope that to the extent that some people are opposed or have real concerns about, either a new senior center or a community center, that we hear that. Mm-hmm. Because to me, we're not going to be successful unless we're able to meet some of those reservations that people will have, because that shows they care.
Yeah.
And it will inform us, because it's just not going to be just the data that's going to make the final decision. That will be if the data, and I'm confident it will be, is representative of the community.
Yeah,
that's the key thing, and it's just not a particular vocal slice that did a good job of making their case. Then yes, that why wouldn't we? Then our recommendation, I would expect, would follow that. So getting good data and knowing what the concerns and questions are is what we need to get.
Yeah. And I think to that point too, is that this whole process is about, it's one part of it is about collecting information that will inform decisions. But the other part of it is that everything we do is public education. So, people who come to the forum, people who read about the forum in the day after, people who see the recording on RCTV, people who talk about, everything we're doing with the forums and the focus groups and ultimately the survey is all equally about public education as it is about collecting data, which, so I think that's important for us to remember too, because, you're all you're building momentum towards a goal. And this is one set of activities that will help you do that. It will also collect information, which is also necessary. But thinking about this whole process as community engagement, I think is really something we have to remember. Great. Oh, Karen.
Hi. So as you're talking, I'm going through the list for the focus groups, and kind of to Marilyn's point. So we have the town staffs and departments in one, residents, leaders, and volunteers in the other, and then the stakeholders. And the stakeholders are, Reading Food Pantry representative, housing and long-term care providers, but I don't see residents who will actually be utilizing it. So maybe in that third focus group for stakeholders, maybe include some of the, especially again, the older adults absolutely need to be represented here. And I think that would be a great place for them to participate.
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Karen. Yeah, that's certainly something we've heard this evening, is to really try to incorporate the residents into that focus group process. So we will certainly find ways to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Do you see any further questions there?
I don't at the
Oh,
moment.
okay.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
So it would now be a good time as far as giving you a direction, and like, once again, it's not foreclosing, anything else that you want to do, but I think
Right.
that would be, helpful. Marilyn, do you agree that this would be the occasion to get
It
a
seems reasonable. It seems like we need some decision on direction sooner than later, because
okay.
Caitlin and her team have got to know what we need to get done and when.
That's right.
Nancy's got her hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering, and maybe Jean can answer this question. The town allotted $40,000 for this project, but the fiscal year will end in June. So what happens if we extend it out into the fall? So I'm just wondering if we have some financial restrictions and constraints here that we need to consider.
That's an excellent question. And thankfully, we have a systematic way of managing projects like this where we don't get tangled up in that. So we are good.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
All right, so at this point on the recalc, I'll entertain well, does anybody will have a motion as to preference for option 1 or option 2, and option 2 being a lengthier process? Is that fair? A different, that we're targeting September. The key thing would be we would wait until the fall for actual surveys.
Right. I believe option 1 is the September survey, which is the recommendation.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
So option 1 would be the fall survey, and option 2 would be trying to get it done in June.
Okay, sorry.
John Sasso has his hand up. I don't know.
Yep, John.
Hey, yeah, yeah, John. Just to reiterate maybe a bit. I know I made the comment a little earlier in my conversation, but I mean, I think Caitlin did a nice job laying out some pros and cons. It sounds like there might be other options in terms of whether a November town meeting deadline is a hard stop in some respects or not. I would argue that no matter which way we go, I think it would be a relevant point to provide an update to town meeting at that point. But whether there's something on the ballot or on the warrant at that point is another question. But I guess I'll reiterate, I'm certainly much more in the camp of option 1. I think we need to give ourselves a bit more time to make sure we put together a really good survey, that we get appropriate feedback from the community and the stakeholders and the forums that are going to take place in the next month or so, and use that to help further guide the study, and then really give us an opportunity to figure out it. I mean, we've had a lot of conversation about how do we make sure we reach everybody. We're not going to figure that out in a month. We still, I think, have some decisions that have to be made around that. I mean, I'd like to believe that the majority of this can still be done online. I think that certainly would make it easier for everybody, and we should find ways to make that as easy as possible for everybody. But I think we do need to look at the other issues of, you know, how we do that, and getting a better response after the 1st of September or after Labor Day. I think, you know, we owe it to the community to do that. So that's, I guess.
Is that a motion, John? Is that a motion?
Yes, John,
Okay.
I make a motion that we support option 1 as the preferred means of pursuing the survey and the work by Caitlin and her group.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'll
Nora
second,
has it.
whatever.
Yeah, Nora did it
Yeah.
first.
John, just so you know, you have Nora with her hand up, John, just so you know.
Oh, yeah, I agree
Okay, I'm
also.
sorry.
The only concern I have is keeping the momentum going. If you're gonna have the focus groups and you're gonna have the discussions early on, and then you're gonna have a lag time, will there be some kind of momentum plan to, you know, what's next or what's happening or to be continued, or that's
Yeah.
my only concern with the.
I think it's a good point, Nora. We can certainly do an update, you know, a presentation, an update based on the qualitative aspects of the project. So what we hear from the forums and the focus groups, so we can make that sort of a touch point with the community as far as, you know, sort of reporting back about those events. And then I certainly think that in the fall, you know, once we were, you know, after summer, we could also think about some kind of, you know, splashy something to get people's attention as we go into the survey process. But I think,
But Caitlin, could you also do something as far as, because we're doing the survey, we're doing the visits to the different communities, and hopefully we're going to talk about that afterwards. That will be wrapping up in the next few weeks.
Okay.
Would that be something that we, to Nora's point, that we could get the word out to people as far as, I don't know, well, just something to think about right now.
Certainly, I mean, I think anything like that, John, I mean, any work that the committee is doing, you know, trying to kind of turn that around into sort of some public, you know, public information and public education is good. So whether it's the work you guys are doing around with other communities, or whether it's, like I said, simply some kind of regular letter to the editor, blog post, Facebook post, you name it, sort of communication, ongoing communication with the town.
Now, Mark, we do have a motion on the floor. Is this on the motion?
I was going to suggest that we deal with the motion on the floor, and then we can have a separate discussion.
Ah, good. So are you seconding the motion then, Mark?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. So it's been moved and seconded that we go with the first option, well, the primary part of the first option being the survey in the fall. Okay. Discussion. Any further discussion from the recount members on that? Nora, is your hand still up from before, or is this?
Well, I had a question, but it's not with the vote.
Okay, so can you hold off on the question if it's not? Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Okay, now we'll take a vote. So we'll have John Sasso.
Yes.
Nora Bucko.
Yes.
John Parsons.
Yes.
Ron Orsini.
Yes.
Did I call Nora? Yes, I did. Yeah. Mark Doxer.
Yes.
John O'Neill. Yes. So the motion carries.
Nope.
We
got Michael. We got Michael.
Oh, Michael is here. Oh,
Right. Mike Holden's yes too.
Michael Colton votes yes too. And Ron, please note that we had all members present.
Yes,
for-
I did. I already captured it.
Thank you. All right, I'll turn it over to you, Marilyn, for
Okay. Council on Aging, anyone want to make a motion regarding which of the options?
I'll make a motion to endorse option 1.
Okay, do we have a
I
second?
second,
Okay,
second.
discussion? No, no questions, then we'll call the roll. Don't think any other people have joined us, so if I miss anyone, call her out. But Karen Fotino,
Yes.
John Parsons,
Yes.
Karen Panett,
Yes.
Sandy Schaefer,
Yes.
Nancy Zimlack,
Yes.
Marilyn Shapley, yes. Did I miss anyone? Nope, then it's carried unanimously on the Council on Aging as well for the option 1, which is the longer time frame and survey in the fall.
Mark, you have your hand up, or is that from?
I do. Thanks. Yeah, if we were, with the vote finished, I wondered if we could talk a little bit more about the point that Nora brought up, which I think is a great point in thinking about the time lag and some of the things that we can do to keep it on people's minds. And in fact, what we'd like to do is ramp it up a little bit because it's toward the survey. So we're trying to figure out how do you take it up? Sorry, maybe this way is what you're seeing. Sorry. And one of the things I wanted to just suggest is that video is an interesting way to do it also. So for folks with either, if they have internet access, it can be to YouTube. If they don't, it can be to RCTV. There may be some ways to get the message out. I think a lot of people are tired of reading things or maybe not inclined that way. And if we can think creatively and share some of the information that we're learning, as you mentioned, Caitlin, from the early activities, that would be great. And share more information and timing on surveys. I think it would be a wonderful way to kind of keep the volume going. So just wanted to share that.
And Nora, you had a question from before, so I didn't.
Yeah, just with outreach, and we're talking about the election day. Are we allowed to distribute any kind of flyer that day, or is that for the forum? Is that allowed?
I can tell you that there are a lot of very strict rules around what
Yeah.
happens at the polls, the day of the election. So if you're asking, can we pass out flyers while people vote? I would say that's
Oh, no.
probably no.
Oh,
No.
nothing inside the field house for sure.
Yeah, I would defer to the town clerk on specifically what the rules are, but I would caution against that. The idea of the message boards and the idea of using what we call code red are 2 ideas I have already pushed forward to our communications team. I don't know what the answers are, but I have already done that while we were meeting.
Oh, John Sassel, did you have your?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up to Mark. I think, and to Nora's point, we talked actually about this a little bit at our last meeting, about how we actually start taking what we're doing and transforming it into a communication plan. Like I said, Mark and I both, when we looked at Wilmington, and I think Mark, you looked at either Andover or North Andover, they spent a lot of time on communication. So I think we might consider sort of like a communication plan. You know, what are the things we want to put together, and how do we want to convey it? Mark, you had an excellent idea about a video. My son just actually put a video together for children's. They're doing a seminar next Saturday, and they asked a bunch of kids that are involved in the heart group to do little videos for the parents. So I think things like that, if we could figure out what those touch points are, what sort of means we want to use, and you know, we talked about the presentation you just gave to the select board last week, John. You know, putting that together, have it available as a PDF, and maybe write a little summary, or maybe do a little talking points to it. But you know, things like that, I think putting together a mini communication plan, and then building on the April forum and any of the focus groups and prep for the survey, you know, review of what the Pleasant Street Center looks like and opening it up. I think all of that would be a great way to kind of think about this. So I don't have all that in my head, but I think it's certainly something, John, we might want to consider putting on as a topic and kind of walking through what that would look like.
Sure. Sounds great. And we do, thanks largely to Jean, but with Mark's help, we do have a presentation that's going to go out to all the new town committee members. So that might be something that, John, to your point, that's already exists now that we can publicize. At this point, though, before we go on, I want to get, if Caitlin's still here, is there anything more she needs from us at this
Caitlin
point?
is still here, and
Okay.
and no, I don't think so. I think this was a really productive and helpful conversation. It was very helpful to us. So I appreciate your time and your energy and effort.
Well, thank you very much for being patient with us.
Of course, of course. We'll be seeing you again soon. Thank you.
All righty. Oh,
Thanks, folks.
yep, Marilyn's waving her hand. Hold on a sec.
Just last month when I suggested that we could, at last month's Council on Aging meeting, ask for a motion to do a distribution of some sort of informative information to help create the buzz. The response I got was, no, please wait until we can talk to UMass because we want to know UMass's opinion. Caitlin, UMass, is there any reservation about the Council on Aging at this point developing postcards, whatever, to start helping inform the public about what's going on?
I see no issue with that.
Thank you. Anyone else have an issue with that at this point? If not, we'll have it on this month's agenda and we will finally start doing communication again.
Okay, Jean,
With the approval of the council, of course.
So I wanted to just say I'm really excited about getting so many things done tonight. So thank you, everybody. But what I also wondered is we have all of this energy around communications, which is great. We have the Council on Aging queued up and ready to go and spend money on communications, which is great. So we have all the winning components, and we even have the idea that maybe we could add another public forum. So tying all those pieces together, I think would be really great to give us more of what everybody's saying, you know, is so important is awareness of the project. The reason we scheduled the forum in as early as we did is because we were pointing towards getting things done in advance of town meeting. And so that was why the forum got scheduled early so that we could get the ball rolling. Hopefully, you know, we'll hopefully get a decent turnout, but I think we should really be picking dates for a second public forum and incorporating that into the next push on communication so that the next, if we're going to do a second forum, let's all work together to give it all we got. So thank you, everyone.
Sounds great. Ron?
Yeah, so when we have these forums, hopefully we're prepared, and Mark and maybe others who have been involved in the town a little bit more. When we have projects like this, we have to be prepared to say how long this is going to take. If we started today, how long will it be till we get a senior center / community center? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? I think we have to be prepared to answer that at these forums because that question will come up.
It definitely will come up.
So if I could just respond from my perspective, a lot of the work we're doing is going to help us answer that exact question. It kind of depends. So, you know, if we're modifying existing space, that doesn't take 5 years.
Sure.
At the committee last night at the ARPA money committee, a question came up about, can't we just put a bathroom into the first floor of the senior center?
I was afraid they were going to say
month? Well, but I'm just saying that the spectrum of the different needs could have different solutions to it. And, you know, it's not if we, if there's a smaller center that takes an existing space, that's different from something that goes, is building brand new.
Mm.
If it's a community center, that's probably a bigger effort in lots of ways, and is going to be on the longer side of the timeline. So I think that these forums, from my perspective, are very much listening sessions, much more than saying that we know what to do, because we don't. That's why we're listening.
Yeah. All right, good point. Appreciate it. Sounds like Mark, you'll be there to answer those questions then.
So just to clarify that, if 4 or more, so if we have if a quorum was there at either one of these public meetings from Recalc, is that a Recalc meeting just because we're attending the forum?
So here's best practice. Let's post.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's post for everything. In
They're
fact, I
already
would even
done.
suggest certainly post the select board. There may be others, maybe the finance committee. I can ask Ed Ross, he may want to be posted just in case a bunch of members come. And then that way, if they do, then a member of the committee calls the group to order. And then when you lose quorum, you adjourn. But that's best practice. So yes, we should definitely do it.
Okay. Marilyn has her hand up.
What, same issue. We should post council on aging too.
Yeah. So Mark is saying yes. And Nora, you have your
Yeah,
hand up?
I just had a question about the forum and the format. So UMass is running the forum totally?
Yes.
That's my understanding. Yes.
And so we're there we would be there just to observe?
To
And
listen.
participate as,
Yeah.
as members of the community.
It'd be the pretty faces in the room.
I mean, because I would love to support it, but I just don't know. Do you want us to do anything in particular, or
No.
is it okay if we respond, or no? There, or
I mean, from where I stand, I absolutely please participate and respond. I don't see, I can't see why we wouldn't want that. But myself and Sierra will be there in person, and Sierra's going to help me manage the online attendees in terms of their feedback, and I'll be managing the folks in the room. And we also will have, we typically pass out sort of 3x5 note cards to everyone who comes in case folks don't feel comfortable standing up and sort of speaking publicly. They can make their comments on a note card and leave it for us, and we'll collect those as well.
and you have like a recorder of some sort, or how it was it Zoom? You're going to record the whole meeting and
Zoom we'll record the Zoom, and yeah, we may bring along a note taker as well, who can help us record responses.
okay, thank you.
Mark?
Thanks, John. My suggestion to the group for consideration is that these really are listening sessions. We're not there to be answering lots of questions. We're there to be listening to ideas, concerns, comments. And, other than someone who said, is there a group that's looking into things and how is it structured? I'd stay clear of answering questions. And we just want people to share their opinions, concerns, ideas. That's what we're looking for, not to be pushing back with, well, yeah, we've already talked about this, or, such and such. This is listening.
Yeah. We don't
There'll
have
be time
any,
to respond later.
And I'll do my best at the outset to sort of set the stage for that, in terms of why, I'm an objective third party. I'm here to understand sort of what's of interest and of need to the community as it relates to these kinds of services and support and programs. So I'll do my best to sort of lay the groundwork and then manage as we need to. But I think that's a great way to describe it, Mark.
okay, John Parsons?
I'd just like to suggest to Jean and Kevin on the forums or the meetings that are happening later in April, you're developing a list of people, and I agree totally with what Mark said, is we should just not be participating or speaking in these things. But I think it would be good if some of us could be there just to observe it and hear firsthand what's going on. So I myself or other people who are interested, I think it would be nice if we were on the list solely as an observer.
I'm definitely going to be there for the evening at the library. I was hoping to be there at this Pleasant Street Center, but have to take care of grandkids, as it turns out. So I won't be able to do it at that point. See, John, anybody else?
I'll be at the Pleasant Street Center for most of it, but I have to pick somebody up at the airport. So I'm gonna have to leave a little bit before it ends.
Okay, so we're really into the next item on the recalc agenda anyway. That was April 6th, because this really answers what I was concerned about. What, if any, was our role? Did we have to post for it and everything? So that's been answered. And so as far as, so anything else for the UMass consultants while they're here this evening? We only have one more item on the recalc agenda anyway. Do I see any? I can't see everybody's hand.
Marilyn,
Okay.
hope you're on.
Carol?
Caitlin, I think because you've worked on the project before, the answer for you is probably yes, but has the UMass team toured the senior center?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone?
Well, I should only speak for myself. I don't believe Sarah or Beth was with me, but I was the second.
I'd recommend that you actually do it. Go physically over to the building. I'd actually also recommend that you don't have to ride in it, but if someone wants to push a wheelchair around, be thinking about the experience of someone in a wheelchair. I did a site visit, and their concern is they need space for electric wheelchairs, because that's what most of their population has, and they want to zoom. Try to zoom in our senior center. You're going to zoom right out the other side of the building, I think. But but I really strongly recommend that you go and tour the whole thing, go down to the basement, see the computer facility, the whole 9 yards, because as you're thinking about what to ask questions about, I think you really need to have experienced the place.
Okay, oh, let me see. We got Mark and John. Was there some? All right, so Mark and then John Parsons. Because John Parsons gets to say things twice anyway.
Just a quick comment. So Marilyn, I think your point is well taken in terms of visiting, certainly, and understanding what's going on. But I really would encourage us not to be responding to people at this forum. Someone who says, you don't need X, Y, Z, blah, 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 whatever. We want to listen and not be responding. We're not defending things. We're not explaining what's there and what isn't. That's not this session. This session is what's on people's minds. What are they talking about? I've talked to neighbors who are saying, what do you mean? What are you talking about? They don't even know there is a senior center, or issues. This is, we want to hear what people do and don't know, not be telling them what we want to tell them. We want to be listening to them. Sorry, I kind of hit that a little too hard. I want to be careful that we're not sitting there defending ourselves. Just want to listen.
Okay, John Parsons.
It's a memory issue. I forgot to take my hand down again.
Okay. All right. Oh, Michael Coltman.
I appreciate the guidance to visit the senior center. I think it's a very interesting idea, and John Sasso's idea of a video. I think it might help to make a video of the senior center for people who haven't been there and aren't going to be able to get there, but would like to see what it's all about and see what it is. I think that's something that we could do not for the April 6th timeframe, but down the road.
It's something that could go on a loop on cable TV as well, if we had a video.
Live tour.
Yeah. And we want to have it be a crowded tour. Yeah. No pickleball court there, though, Michael.
And somebody in a wheelchair in the tour.
Ah, yes.
And or a walker.
Oh, that also reminds me, is there going to be a signer? at these, either one of the public forums?
ASL,
Yes.
we don't have that capacity on our side, but we haven't explored that with the town yet.
John, just a quick comment, as we've learned from our meeting, for people that attend on Zoom, we can
Closed
enable
captioning.
captioning.
We can certainly do that.
We should make a point that we just do that, right? Okay. That certainly will help. All right. If this is final chance for just for this evening, as far as UMass people. Let's say last going once, twice. I don't see any hands. Does anybody else see any hands? Okay. So thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
John Sasso, is that a? What is
I
his name?
was just saying thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there's one more item on the recalc agenda, and that is on at least a reminder as far as the visits to the various centers. I know only 2 now have been put out by Kevin. I'm assuming that more visits have been done. We had stated at our last meeting, which was 3 weeks ago, that hopefully within 4 weeks, most of them would be in. Is it reasonable to expect that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, they will in fact be in? So this is for the, John Sasso? You
Yeah.
have your hand up? Yeah.
Yeah, can I, just to help, I'll put the sheet up and we can maybe just walk through them one at a time, get a quick status. Is that okay?
That's good.
All right, give me 1 second.
Okay, I have mine in front of me. All right.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
So let's go down the list. Actually, I'm gonna status. Which of the one I saw that there were 2 attached, so there were 2 that were done. Can you remind me?
Wilmington and North Andover.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Wilmington and North Andover.
Wilmington and North Andover. Are there any other ones that have been done that just haven't been turned in?
I went
And-
to,
Sorry.
sorry,
Go ahead, Amy.
sorry, I went to Andover.
This is John Parsons. The 3 of mine have been done. They just need to be turned in.
So Situate,
Situate, Bedford, and Winchester.
And I went to Westboro.
any others?
Linfield, I've been there. It requires transcription service, but then it'll be available.
Dedham has been done also, John.
Thank you, Kevin.
Arlington, I've collected some data, but the center isn't open yet and I'm trying to get in to finish it. So
Sure.
pending. Can you put pending?
Lexington tomorrow. There's 3 of us going. The 2 names that are there is and Michael Colton.
I also have the data on Salem, and I'm visiting there next Tuesday at 8:30.
If I can just add, I almost had the town manager go with me to Linfield, but I think I might be able to get him to come with me to North Reading.
Okay.
And this is Mike Colbin. As far as Melrose, their center is not open right now until April 11th. I've been talking to the director of the place, but I have a call back coming.
This is Ron for Needham. I've reached out to the director left a voicemail, and have not heard back from them yet.
This is Nancy for Lincoln, and they were they were having their town meeting this week, I think, and they were getting prepared for it. So I'm hoping to get back in touch with her the beginning of next week. And then Milton, she was funny. She basically told me no. And the reason she told me no was she said they are out straight and they only have a staff of 3. Sound familiar? So what I did was I sent her the survey, the questionnaire, the site visit worksheet, and then I'm going to call her and we're going to talk through it on the phone. Is that okay?
Sure.
I would say absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nancy, I wonder if it would be possible at your leisure, just to visit the center, not
Yeah,
take the time of the director.
I was thinking of that too. Yeah.
Okay. I am in process with Wakefield. I've collected some information, but a site visit is off pending me getting out of quarantine. So it may not be for another week or two, unfortunately, before I can even think about going there. So that is on hold.
Okay.
And as far as Natick is concerned, I've been doing my trying to do my online homework, and I'm behind. That should be in process. But
And this is Amy. I had an appointment to go to Stoneham and then they canceled it. It was kind of similar to Nancy. They said they were very short-staffed, a little stressed, and just didn't have the capacity to even answer the survey right now. So I'm gonna try back. And this was through one of my staff who lives in the town.
If that doesn't work out, is it possible? In a conversation with Kathy Bauer from the Massachusetts Council on Aging, she's a staff person for them. She suggested Winthrop would be a really good place to go. Anybody able to go, and maybe in lieu of one of the ones that just aren't going to happen?
This is Nancy. I'll give them a call and see what they say.
Okay. Appreciate that.
I heard that the Danvers Senior Center is really nice too.
I can go to Danvers. I'm right next door, and also reach out.
Yeah.
Great. And I think we have a little bit more flexibility time-wise, given what, our earlier conversation this evening, which I feel a lot, I don't know about the rest of the members, I feel better about the process now than I did before the evening started.
Who just mentioned about Danvers? I'm sorry, I was.
That was Ron.
Jenna.
But Jenna's going to go. Yeah.
Jenna. All right. Thank you. Sorry.
I just like to add, I think Danvers is a great idea because 2 of the places I went to, they said to me, surely you're going to Danvers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, if anyone else wants to go, feel free.
Danvers, I think, is one of our peer communities.
Yeah.
I am out straight until after this weekend.
No,
till
John.
after next weekend.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
I'll go. I'll take pictures too.
Yeah, the person from Wilmington was supposed to send me pictures and she hasn't yet, so I'll get in contact with her again. But because she was very generous with her time.
John, I'll send this back out to you and Kevin after the meeting.
That'd be great.
I'm just curious if I can ask, so I see as we are getting these surveys back, just to remind me, are they going to Kevin and Jean to then get put into a database, or is that the plan at the moment?
Yes, send them to me. This is Kevin, and I'll work on collating the data and figuring out how to best get it out to people, rather than just sending the reports.
Yep. No, that's fine.
Is our goal, folks, to be also taking pictures and including them somehow with the form?
That was the goal.
That is it's on the survey form, Mark, that there's I think it's like the third line that says take pictures, please.
Okay, and is there a way to attach them? Or what's the way to submit, the best way to submit so we can get the pictures too? Is it set up as so I printed it out and scribbled like crazy. That's why I got to do the transcription. So I assume that is it set up as a Google form or a doc, and can I attach pictures directly to it?
You can send me an email with the pictures, Mark.
Okay, it's just separately, just identify
Yeah,
where
it's a
it is.
PDF. It's a PDF form, I think, right now.
Right,
So
it is a PDF.
it's a PDF
Okay.
fill-in form, so you can't attach it.
Can you
Okay,
add
so we'll send them
comments?
separately to Kevin. That sounds great.
Yep.
Is there any way to add comments on the form? I didn't see space for comment.
Yeah, I know there was a couple of places where you really couldn't put the information right
Yeah, so if we
where
had
the
extra
question was.
text, like, how would we put extra text in there?
I wrote my extra, I'm muted, no, I printed it out, I filled it out electronically, then I printed it, and then I wrote comments that I didn't have room for, like the hours, for example, so tiny, no one was gonna be able to read it, so I wrote that out in bigger letters. And Kevin, I did put some photos in the email that went with that, they're actually embedded in the email. I don't think they made it into what got copied over, but I can send them as separate documents if that's easier for you.
No, I do have Maryland. I just didn't print them out. And
Okay, no
include
problem,
them.
thanks.
Yep.
Okay, so there's no other questions, comments on that. Is there any new business that was unanticipated for the recalc committee? From any of the members?
Just one thing, John, but I think Mark had his hand up first.
Okay, Mark and then John Stasso.
Sorry, when we were talking about funding sources, I would encourage folks to look at, somebody asked a question, there's a comment back to it, but we've been talking a lot about funding potential ideas, and there's an opportunity to lobby for some. So I would encourage people to do that. And maybe, John, what we could do is put it on our next agenda.
And what exactly would that?
Potential funding sources for feasibility study, to be precise. And frankly, potentially other things, but at least that.
Okay. And John Sasso?
Yeah, I'd like to propose an action. Yeah, it's always me thinking about actions here. I was the one that brought up the idea potentially of a communication plan. I know we have a group has talked about this, so it's not just my idea. But I think it would be helpful if we really some of the talking we were having earlier, brainstorming ideas about videos and touch points. I think it would be helpful to kind of really lay that out in an outline and talk through it, and then decide. In fact, I think I didn't see it on the minutes from last week, or last time, but I have this tendency to remember that I may have volunteered after the presentation was put together to try to put together a one-pager PDF. So that's what I get for not writing my actions down. But I think it would be helpful to maybe put together the beginnings of what we think a communication plan might look like as we move through this project. You know, what are the touch points? What are the topics? What are the videos we want to put together? My son works for cheap if you want to have him put a video together. You know, whatever things we want to do, I think it would be helpful to maybe put that on our agenda. And
I already made a note to have that on our agenda, but if
Okay.
you wanted to have a, you know, like a one pager or something, John, to stimulate and give us some guidance as to how to proceed on that discussion, that would certainly be more than welcome.
Yeah, no, I'll send it to Kevin. You can put it in the packet, and then we can review it for next time.
Okay.
But I think it's certainly one of the things that came out loud and clear from all the study work that we've been looking at with other towns is they spent quite a bit of time with communication up front. So I think if we do that and figure out what we want those to be and how we put them together and what, if we have to take it, or if we can take advantage of some of the resources in the communication group at the town, that would be great. But I think we need to put the content together. So we kind of have to figure that out. And yes, working with Marilyn and the COA, without a doubt, I think it's important that we coordinate that. I don't want us as a group to be putting out something and then COA put up something different and Elder Services put out something different. We really need to tie it together. So I think if we use it as a common thread for all of us, I think that would be helpful. And then we can pull deliverables out of that as well.
Okay.
So I will take a stab at a first cut, and you guys can hack up all over it for.
Okay. Marilyn?
And I was going to say, John, if you're sending that to Kevin, because at our next Council on Aging meeting, given that everyone said, yes, we can start sharing information, if you could share that one pager with us as well, so that we can.
When's your next meeting? When's your next?
We're meeting on April
11th.
11th.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I can get it done. I got a long list of items, unfortunately, but yeah, I'm adding this to it.
Okay, and we can do the same back. If we put something together as a plan, we can share it through Kevin and ask that Kevin make sure that it gets to this committee as well.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? So if we are going to think about adding another public forum, my suggestion is we identify dates as soon as possible. Obviously, it's not going to be in April. So we're going to be fairly tied up with town meeting and various other meetings until about the 5th of May, maybe the 9th of May. So between the week of the 9th, the week of the 16th, I don't know if the week of May 23rd is a good week. That week ends with starting Memorial Day weekend. So
do we want to do it? See, I was thinking we would do it closer to when we were doing the survey in September. No?
I think we probably want to talk about that, because if the date of the launch of the survey is September 6th, which is the Tuesday after Labor Day. So you start to lose people July, June is iffy, July, August.
Oh, no, I was talking about in September, no earlier than September, but that was just a thought.
Yeah, I think that's probably worth some discussion. Maybe put it on the agenda for next time to really be thinking about, does a second forum make sense? And if it does it want to happen between, now and Labor Day, Memorial Day, say, or does it want to wait? And do you want to push the survey out even further?
No.
Because these forums are the benefit of now of the luxury of waiting till September is we can use the feedback from the forums to inform the survey.
Yes.
That's why having it in May, if we're going to have another chance to do this with more communication and more.
I was thinking just the other way around. Survey was going to stimulate people, the buzz that we were talking about. But maybe.
I heard it to be that people felt like there should be more connection with the senior population in particular before the survey goes out. That's how I heard it.
Yes, no, that was the
Okay.
communication thing. Yeah, no question about that. It's just the
So
actual.
if that's the goal, I think waiting until, because the survey is right now scheduled to go out the day after Labor Day. I don't think we have the luxury of September. I think we have either May or June.
Yeah, I think the forum's a small part of the communication thing, but there were three hands up. Well, let's see what people think. So we had Marilyn, Mark, and Ron.
I was just gonna say what Jean said, so I'm all set.
Which
Thank you,
is-
Jean.
And so let me reiterate a little bit too. I think that we got to talk about the goals of the survey are. I think that they can really help us, think about the goals of the forum and think about how that helps us inform what goes on in the survey. So I think the sooner side to me is going to make more sense. And I caution us, if we can take a little pressure off for November, I don't think that means we take pressure off of our activity. I just caution us to kind of keep rolling and rolling and rolling, because things tend to just keep doing that. We really should, we want to get going. And I'm hesitant to give up on November anyway, but it is what it is. But I really don't want us to push much further than that. I see more downside than upside.
Ron?
Gene, does that require for another form for UMass to coordinate that and take the input, or is that something that we do on our own?
The way I understood it, and Kevin and I will verify this, that UMass is willing to do another forum and just add to what's already been put forth.
Okay, great.
My hesitation is that I'm thinking the sorts of questions that or items that we wanted to see on the survey that we had developed, okay? That gives people some idea of what the possibilities are. So I don't think the forums is the place where people are going to know what's possible. What has changed? All they'll know is that it's being discussed, and we do a lot of communication as far as, there's a possibility of a senior center or community center with primary focus on seniors, but as far as why that's important or what that may have, why that may touch them or have involved them at all, how would they know unless they know some sort of idea of what programs of activities are being contemplated?
From a senior perspective, John, I think you're going to get people have opinions and they already know what they want. Today at the coffee that we had for the new town manager, he was asking if anybody had any questions, and there were 2 or 3 people that had a number of questions about this new senior center / community center project. So I think the seniors anyways have a lot of ideas already.
But see, to Marilyn's point, we're talking about a very small percentage of seniors that have anything to do with the senior center. And most of the rest of the community don't even know anything about the senior center. And so we're talking about trying to reach a much broader population. But anyway, so I got hands up. So I'll take Ron, Mark, and then Marilyn.
So I think it goes to John's point, to communicate what was discussed at the forum as well too, types of things. So I don't know. 2 things. I think the April 6th forum is going to be lightly attended because it's the day after election. That's my opinion. And then you should have another follow-on one scheduled just in case that one's lightly attended.
Okay. Mark and then Marilyn.
Thanks, John. I think what we're hearing is that this is a good thing for us to discuss at our next meeting also. There's enough opinions here about what's the purpose. I think it would be also great to kind of put together again, maybe a little bit of a total timeline in terms of what we're thinking and what that looks like, and think about all the pieces that we want to bring together. For example, the purpose of trying to get to November town meeting, as I've been thinking about it, was going to be a request for funds for a feasibility study. And the feasibility study would be able to bring back and answer some of your questions, Ron, about, what are we talking about? What are the possibilities? I hear all the time, where are you going to put it? There are lots of questions like that. The feasibility study is how you get the answers to those. And so we should just talk about what are we thinking, are kind of our milestones as it would go. And that may tell us the different times that we want to communicate and listen versus communicate.
Okay. Hey, Marilyn?
In terms of people not having the vision of what could be, I understand what you're saying, but I think in my mind, the first set of questions to ask is, what are your personal needs as a senior in this community? Are you isolated? Are you suffering from inability to get to stores that you need to? Do you have playmates? Do you have kindred spirits? And those are the needs we're meeting. How we program to satisfy those needs is like the next step. But I think what we need to hear is a first measure of how much need is there that's going unmet, either because of shortcomings of the building or any of a million other things, and then go from there. And then the next step would be, suppose all these nifty things were available, do they interest you? Because, it's though you can get the horse to water, but you can't make them drink. It could be someone who's miserably lonely and hungry and all the rest, and there's no way they're going to let anyone give them a ride or whatever. I mean, we just don't know. But they're two separate questions. And the first one's really separate from the building. It's what's the need in the community among the senior population. And the second is, if we designed a building that had these features and programs, would that help? So
I think those things are mixed, but that's maybe a larger discussion. In other words, I think there's a role that's certainly the Council on Aging that should be a primary focus all along. What's the need? And it's not just the building, it's broader than the building.
Yeah.
But so I don't disagree with that thinking. I'm not as clear as how that fits into this process.
Okay, along that need, something we've talked about is doing we've done SurveyMonkey surveys in the past. Is there any issue that we would have with doing an updated SurveyMonkey to get the temperature of the town of what are senior needs? And this is separate from the discussion of the new building. Just how are you doing? What do you need? Are we meeting your needs? Could we start reaching out with repeating something we've done in the past with an updated tweak?
Yeah, and now that you mentioned it, I know the Wilmington person suggested to me that you don't ask people, do we need a new senior center? You ask them what their needs are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something the Council on Aging could talk about, helping out to fund and support. And we've done it in the past. This isn't earth shattering. It's just, again, we haven't done it in a long time now.
Yeah. Okay. Was there another hand up? Ron had been up, but that must have been taken down from before. Okay. At least from the recalc side of it, just wrapping up, I already have communication discussion, potential funding sources, and next forum. And so we have a lot of, do we think it would be beneficial to have maybe, what do you think as far as being another joint committee meeting, Marilyn?
Personally, I find these meetings really productive. And already I'm thinking, okay, so we're going to go back and we'll talk about communication because I'll put it on our agenda and we may have a motion and we may even have a draft. And already I'm like, oh, but when can we talk to recalc? Because we want to coordinate. We don't want to have hurdles. I personally find it productive for us to meet jointly as often as we can. I might even go so far as to suggest combining, at least for the next few months, the Council on Aging meetings with this in lieu of our other meetings, because I think we're able together to accomplish perhaps more, but I would have to ask my council members what they thought about that.
Okay. Mark?
So just to chime in a little bit on that, I think we got to be careful. We have related missions, but they're not exactly the same. And I think that it may be, there are certain things that are clearly we need to work on together, particularly communication surrounding, some of the discussions going forward, and staying in touch. And we have liaisons that go back and forth between the two groups. Larger meetings are a little bit harder to run and be productive, folks, right? And that's one of the reasons why we tried to limit the size of recalc, to the maximum that we did, was just to allow for a little bit more nimbleness in terms of what's going on. So sharing of information, I think, is awesome and exactly how we should do it. But I'm wondering if there should be the occasional meeting together rather than the every time meeting together. I think that'll be more productive.
Okay. Might I suggest something in between, at least for the next meeting, that, let's say, like Maryland. Well, Maryland's gonna, but
I'll be here.
I was gonna say you're gonna be here. So I mean,
If I can be here, I will be here. My immediate concern is, given discussions we've had in the past, I think it's highly likely that on the 11th, we will have a postcard or something all drafted and ready for a vote to mail out. I would like it not to have to wait a month for us to coordinate with Recalc to get approval that, yes, this makes sense. So if we could have some process that we could get a decision, I don't know if you want to empower Mark as our liaison to say, yep, that fits with Recalc, or whatever might help so that we could start to move forward.
So you also have John Parsons, who's on both, right? I talked
Right.
about
Or John Parsons could be empowered to say yes. I just would like to have a process in place so bureaucracy doesn't stop us from doing something that's ready to go and no one had any objection to. And there was lots of discussion that we need to be creating the buzz, and we're happy to help and able to do so. And something like a simple postcard that even explains what Recalc is and says, be looking for more information, start to create awareness. It's not very expensive. It could go out quite quickly. We've priced it out quite a few times. But I don't want to be doing something independently of Recalc that's going to cross paths, and I don't want to wait a month to get it out if we're ready to go.
now I'll ask Mark, go ahead.
So actually, I think that's a harder point, to tell you the truth, Marilyn.
Okay.
If the purpose of the postcard is to tell everyone about Recalc, then I think you want to talk to Recalc about it.
Which is why I'm saying we need a method.
Yeah, if your message is, we want to reach out to the community, we want to understand the needs, we want to get communication going, we want to tell you about some forums that are coming up, that's great. That sounds awesome. That sounds like it's spot on to the communications needs. But I'd be careful. I think we have, in some ways, we have a lot of very similar goals. And maybe we're better off having two voices to accomplish it rather than trying to make it one.
I'm fine with that too. I just want to know what the sign-off path is, so we're not getting in each other, not causing problems or disagreement with the other group. We want to be supportive in whatever we're doing, and we want to be able to not have our hands tied. We want to be able to go forward with it. So I just want us to agree on a process.
So my gut would be that if it's kind of talking all about Recalc, you want Recalc to be able to see it.
Okay, but if it's not, if it's just saying there are forums coming up and.
Oh, that's.
Thumbs up.
I would say, more power to you. I don't know. Mark, are you disagreeing or?
No, I'm agreeing. Sorry, yeah. I'm trying to find my camera. There it is.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's a little hard to say there are forums coming up without saying they're Recalc forums. Yeah. Or, I mean, we can say there are forums about a senior center and not mention, the acronym Recalc, but.
But to your point, you wanted to assess the needs of the community.
That was one of many things.
Right,
that was a separate point.
Yeah, but step by step, right? You're not going to try to do one card that kind of does everything. It sounds like you want to kind of go one thing at a time.
Okay, so you're comfortable with our doing a how are you? Hello, we haven't forgotten you. How are you survey?
And you wanted to start soliciting or eliciting needs and things.
Yes.
I think that's awesome, and more, if I can say, more services oriented, perhaps. That to me makes tons of sense. That sounds great. And I don't think that that crosses paths, at
No,
all. I think it's
no.
very complementary.
Okay, so that could be a first priority for us if the whole council agrees to it, and we could then get back with you and we could see how we can coordinate and how we can support recalc communication as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think sharing back and forth the different things, the different ideas that the groups have. Here's what we're thinking of doing, and here's why. There may be some areas that overlap beautifully, and others that it's like great, but we're in a slightly different direction in terms of the needs. Recalc at the end of the day needs to come back with specific recommendations, so we need to be sure we're gathering that info that lets us do that.
I understand. I appreciate it. Okay. I can see a path that we can start to do something. So it's a chink in the wall.
Dean?
Yeah, so for me, I feel like if the Council on Aging is going to send a postcard out to the 60+ population, that aligns perfectly with the concern about messaging to this population about what Recalc is doing. The piece that about saying, and there's going to be forums coming up, if we already had that date selected, it would be already included in that communication.
Mhm.
So I think that's a missed opportunity if there's a mailing that goes out and doesn't have that in there. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
That's a very good opinion.
Yes, I agree.
We could submit the draft of it to, when does recalc meet again?
20th.
Oh, not till the 20th.
But Marilyn,
Yes.
we actually have a number of drafts we can start working with.
I know we do.
I think
we have a drawer full of them.
I think we're like 3/4 of the way there.
I just want to, I want to know.
I know, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I just want to know the sign off process and the scope that, no one will have an issue with and will be supportive and make good use of the money.
Yeah.
And it's just also, given the dates that are going on, if the Council on Aging is on the 11th and Recalc on the 20th,
Yep,
that's pretty quick turnaround. If there was something that we wanted to compare,
that's true. It's only the next week.
that would work really well. And
Yeah.
And to the point on having a date, sounds like an awesome idea.
All right, so we're going to aim for a postcard that does include a date for a forum, correct?
Yes.
So it can mention recalc, clearly.
Yes.
And so it needs to have at least a few sentences that say, by the way, this is what recalc is.
Gonna be quite a postcard.
Oh, we've got so many postcards. We've got big ones, we've got little ones, we've got flyers, you name it. We keep trying. All right. And it's going to have the date of the forum, a little bit about recalc, and perhaps a little bit on the status of the Pleasant Street Center is, and it's up to you, Kevin and Amy, whatever you're comfortable with, that the Pleasant Street Center is working its way back. That, we're working hard, and we could even just point them to the link on the website to Pleasantries and say, go there if you want to see. So it wouldn't require mailing anything out extra right now or anything, but just to make them aware.
Yeah, I would just add that I would hope that Pleasantries would come back sooner rather than later.
We've come up with a 2-page flyer as an alternative that would be much less expensive. And again, we can point them to the link for the full Pleasantries, but a two-sided flyer could go out to every household for not a whole lot of money, much less effort and money than doing the whole Pleasantries, but it's a way to start getting Pleasantries back out to everybody. So,
okay.
All right, I think, Nancy, do you agree we got enough direction on the scope of what would be most likely to be to everyone's approval? Yes, I'm seeing 2 thumbs up. I'm seeing a smile from Mark and Jean. Okay.
Just a question, as you're looking at the content that you want to put into what we're calling a postcard, you may want to decide that it's too much for a postcard, or that, geez, we really need to limit it to a postcard. But you won't be able to do both, right? You won't be able to put a letter's worth of stuff on a postcard.
No, but we could do two mailings. We've got lots of options. As you've pointed out, Mark, you know, the trust fund people want to know why we aren't spending the money, and part of it's for outreach. So here we are, willing and able. Yes, Jean. Sorry, I'm taking over the meeting.
I live in Wakefield and I just got my mailing from the Council on Aging because I am a senior citizen. And my mother, who is even more of a senior citizen than I am, she got one too. We live in the same house. So it had everything about the programs, and it was a, you know, multi-pager, but it wasn't as big as the pleasantries. Yeah, so that's the first time I've gotten one. I've been a senior citizen for a while, and I don't remember getting one before.
My mother lives in Wakefield. She gets hers regularly as well too.
Yeah, and North Andover's been pumping theirs out. They're sending it out to about 4,500 of their 6,000 elderly. So, all right.
All right.
We have action we can do in the Council on Aging, and I think it will help recalc, and I think it will help the town. So,
absolutely.
Great. So I think the process now is that the Council on Aging adjourns first, and then we'll adjourn. Right.
we have a motion to adjourn from the Council on Aging. John, you
I
gotta
make a
unmute
motion.
yourself. Who did it?
I make a motion, Karen Panett, I make a motion to adjourn the Council on Aging meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a second, Leck?
Yes.
Marilyn Shapley, yes. We are adjourned at 9:21.
Okay.
Woo-hoo.
So now recap.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn from Mark. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. The roll call. It's Nora Bucko,
Yes.
Michael Coltman,
Yes.
Mark Doxer,
Yes.
John Parsons,
Yes.
John Sasso,
Yes.
and John O'Neill, yes.
Ron
Meeting-
Rossini, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ron. I thought okay. And so the meeting is adjourned until April 20th. Will be our next meeting.
Thanks,
you.
folks.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Night.